Hi everyone. I like to do lots of different types of quilts. I like to design pieced quilts. I like to design pieced blocks with applique. I like applique quilts. So I thought today I would tell you about what I'm thinking about when I'm designing a pieced block quilt. This is rose moss, and it's an early pattern of mine. I think I made it in 2011, and the blocks are all pieced. There are two different blocks in the quilt. One is this flower block that I decided looked like rose moss. The other block is a rail fence block. The reason that I put these together was partly because this block, when I got it done, it was a 4-patch, and I think it may have finished at 8 inches. If not 8, then 9 inches, but it's a 4-patch. And I think it was 8 inches because this block is also a 4-patch, and it finishes at the same size as this block. And it's good when you're marrying two blocks together in a quilt if they're the same, on the same grid pattern. So if you're putting 4 patches together, that works nicely. If you're trying to put a 9-patch block with another block, it's often nice if you can put it with another 9-patch grid. So that was one thing. The other thing I think that I often do when I'm doing designing of quilts is if I have one block that's busier or has a lot to it, then the other block I usually try to make a little simpler. So a rail fence block is fairly simple, and it's a good one to use if you are pairing it with another block in a pieced block quilt. I also think it's a great idea to, when you have borders, to put the some of the fabrics from inside the quilt into the border. I think that kind of makes it go together better. And finally, when I am placing colors in a quilt, I think about the fact that dark colors are a little heavier visually. So if I have darker colors, I will often put them near the bottom of the quilt or nearer the bottom, because in nature we tend to think of them as weighing more, and it bothers us if they're up near the top. We think they should be down closer to the ground or closer to the bottom of the quilt. So that's what I thought about when I made this quilt and when I designed it, and you can do the same thing. It's not hard. Here are a couple of other quilts that are pieced block quilts that anyone could design. They're not terribly difficult. They're very easy, and I wanted to tell you a couple of tips that I think about when I'm designing a quilt. On this quilt, this is what I call star carousel. The stars are a Judy Martin pattern that I wanted to do because I wanted to use lots of different scraps that would go together. So I made the stars, and then when I put them together, I wanted to have an alternate block that would not take away from the stars, but would also add some design in the rest of the quilt. So the alternate blocks are these half square triangles. They're very easy to make. The blocks are not difficult, and these alternate squares are not difficult. I often use half square triangles as alternate blocks because they work so well. I also like to use a lot of different backgrounds, some darker, some lighter, and lots of these, especially if you're using busy fabrics. I think it's nice to have backgrounds that are somewhat busy, but also lots of different colors, because we love all these fabrics and they just look very nice when they're all together. So this is Star Carousel. Star Carousel, oh, one more thing. Star Carousel is I think this was a 9-inch grid block. And so I made sure that my half square triangles were finishing at 9 inches also. That's another good thing about half square triangles. You can make them any size, so they can work with almost any size grid on your piece block. Then over here, I have another simple, easy to piece quilt, which is 2 different blocks. There are these square in the middle, they're not diamonds, but they're square in the center block, and then a simple stripe block on the side. They go together very easily because there's not a lot to them. They are the same, they finish at the same size, so you can put them together. And on this one, I particularly like to use black and whites a lot. So they worked really well. You can put any color in the world, and I think most of these were batiks, but you can put any color with blacks and whites, and it really shows up the color. So, and then for the stripe section in the middle, I love to have stripes in quilts. I think stripe fabrics can really make the design even better. This is actually a stripe fabric, but in the pattern for the quilt, I show how you can make that stripe, you know, if you wanted to make the stripe fabric yourself using rows of different colors. So another quilt, 2 blocks that are pieced, easy to piece, and as long as they fit together nicely, you can whip them out really fast, and blacks and whites are a very good color combination to use with lots of color.